Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just giving a second to make sure everything is transmitting properly. We do record these trainings, so you don't have to stay here for the entire time. Roughly lasts about an hour and a half. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask any questions about a feature as I'm going over it, and I'll do my best to address the question at that time. If I happen to miss a question, I have no problem going back and covering that feature. All right, let's go ahead and dive in since I got a slightly late start. So here we have our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information for you to be able to log in. The first and most important is your email address. Then we need your password. And then the third thing is your account name, which is typically your company name or organization name. Sometimes it could be your own name if you just signed up under, made a personal account. Now, and all that should have been emailed to you when you first signed up or when your admin created your user. If you forgot your password or didn't get that email, down here at towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. And you can click on that. It's going to flip the box around. We still need your email address, right? But then in these following 2 fields, we only need one of the 2, right? So either your account name or an account phone number, right? So one of your customer-facing phone numbers. And then you click on Reset Password. The system will then email you a password reset link, which allows you to log in temporarily to change your password, right? It logs you back out shortly thereafterwards, and you come back here and you fill out the form. And part of the reason it does that, so it gives you the opportunity here to click on Remember Password or Remember Me. And then you click on Sign In. Now, I do recommend, bookmarking this page so that way you don't have to look for it on the VirtualPBX homepage. Right? It's just easier to get to this, especially if you're a system admin. All right, so once you get logged in, by default, it's going to take me to my dashboard page. And that's because I logged into this account several times. If it's your first time logging into your account, you're actually taken to your account page. And you can always get to your account page by clicking on your name at the top right of the page. So we'll click there. And here we are on my user page where I could change my password if I wanted to, right? So if you need to change your own password, click on your name at the top right, and then you can change your password here. As a system admin, I also have access to the account settings over here on the left. And the most common thing that's changed is typically the time zone. Now, just so you know, that first time logging in, the dash wizard will have pop-ups telling you what certain things are. It will happen here. It will happen on the dashboard page, the users page, and the groups page. So you can either read through it all or just skip through it. That's purely up to you. Now, this is a test account, so these are my limited options here. For you, on your accounts, below where it says user, there'll be a separate section for billing information. So this is where you could see the plan that you're on, previous invoices. You could update your credit card information or your payment information, as well as previous invoices, and edit who the billing contact is. Now, our billing system is going through an upgrade right now, or transition. So updating the payment information and some of those other features, you may actually have to talk to our billing team directly. And that's just our toll-free number, 888-825-0800, and option 5, and they'll be able to help you out with that. Once you're done here, over here, back towards the top right, just beneath the black bar, click on the little close box, and then you'll be on the dashboard page. Now up here there at the top, or at the very top of the page, right, you can click on your name to always get back to that account page. to the right of your name, for most of you, you'll have a D&D toggle, right, for do not disturb. I don't have it here on my user because my user is part of an ACD queue, and the ACD queue and the do not disturb feature do not work well together. So once I was assigned to queues, that toggle was removed. But that's an easy way to, basically have your user not accept calls, right? Because you're like, hey, I need to be heads down on a project. Now here we have the little question mark icon, right, for help. You have three of these options will always be here. The fourth one is optional. So first up, we have chat with us. This opens up the chat window, the bottom right corner of your browser window, so you can chat with one of our support team members. Learn more is going to open up a new tab, take you to our support pages, so you can see guides and videos of how to set up particular features. Online store, this opens a new tab and takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order things like a router or a VoIP phone. And then the optional one here is web phone. This only shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. And then usually the next login, it will show up. When you click on this, this opens a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That page does ask you to log in, and it uses your dash login information, but it allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make a few calls, right? So it's a VoIP device. Now, the mobile versions of those browsers are not supported, so it may or may not work. All right, then we got the three horizontal line icon, sometimes referred to as the menu icon or the hamburger icon. These takes you to other dash features. Some of them are plan specific, like dynamic caller ID. Others are included, like, what is that? Oh, blacklists. And for the most of our training, we'll be here on the dashboard, but we will touch on these other areas as well. And then lastly, this last icon is to log out of your Dash account. Now here in the center, we have my total users. I have 23 users, so these are people who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on the number of users, so as you add more people, you potentially increase your cost. Down here, I have total devices. I have 39 different devices and a breakdown of them. Right. So first up is SoftPhone. This is a software application that acts like a phone. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So these are VoIP devices. This includes the VirtualPBX softphone app or any third-party softphone apps you might be using. Then we have a SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a piece of hardware, typically connected via Ethernet, gets to your internet, make and receive calls. So a Yealink phone, Cisco, Polycom, etc. SIP is a kind of VoIP phone, right? VoIP's a general classification of device, right? Voice over internet protocol just means internet phone, essentially. And then there are different protocols that they use, and the one that works with us is called SIP, S-I-P. So if you're shopping, that's the key thing to look for. The web phone, again, that browser-based Chrome or Firefox device. Cell phone, most of us have been using cell phones for quite a while now. And then landline, those are the typical ones that come up. Now, unregistered devices, it says I have 3, and that's in relation to my SIP phones, right? It's saying 3 of them are not registered, and that means we can't send calls to it or from it. Now, this obviously doesn't tell us why phones are unregistered. That could be they're not plugged in, right? Or someone's having an internet issue of some sort. Next up, I have total numbers. I have 34 phone numbers on your account. Your accounts include at least a set number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? And that's included. You don't get charged for each individual number. Now, once you go over that allotment, you'll be charged on a per number basis per month. If you just signed up, check the pricing page on our website. Otherwise, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Then we have 2 breakdowns. The first here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Side number means it's the number you're using, right? Someone can dial that number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Right? Spare number on your account counts towards your allotment. You're just not using it right now, right? So like you're about to expand into a new market, has a different area code. You already picked up the number, so you can start, preparing your marketing materials and any signage you need to get for that location. Or you just had a promotion end, right? So like in the United States, or for most of the country, or anyway, like Halloween just ended. So let's say you just had a Halloween promotion. You're like, okay, it's November 1st. Boom. Take that number out of service so that way we're not getting calls on a promotion that's no longer valid. All right, the next breakdown, USD and US toll free. US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. USD, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you have a phone number in Elmira, New York, it would show up in there, just like one would show up in, say, from Los Angeles, California, right? Also USD. You can have international phone numbers if you're so inclined. You need to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They'll let you know if that's possible and if there's any additional requirements. That's going to vary from country to country. Conference bridges, I have 3, and that just means I've enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference on 3 of my users. Now we're going up here to the top right where it says main number, and you see I've got 5 phone numbers here. These 5 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion. They're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. Right, so these are like your general phone numbers. You can obviously have multiple numbers if you're so inclined. Next up, I have the conference room number. Right, this is the number everyone dials to reach my conference rooms, whether they're my staff members, my clients, my vendors. They all dial this number, and then they'll be directed to enter a conference room number and a PIN number. You can have multiple conference room numbers, but you're still going to the same set of conference rooms. The fax box number, having a phone number here, that means this is your inbound fax number, right? So if someone needs to send your company a fax, this is the number they send to. You can only have the one main fax box number. Next up, we have the company directory. This lets you download a CSV file, and it'll show you your users, right, with their names, their extension numbers, and their devices. Then we have the soft phone directory. This is for use with the desktop version of the VirtualPBX soft phone application. You would download this file, upload it to your soft phone on your Windows or Mac PCs. This will allow you to see the status of the other soft phones on your account. Right, so if your whole organization is using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you'll be able to see who's on a call and who's not. Now, if any of your staff members have multiple devices, so let's say, my colleague Mike has a Yealink phone as well as a soft phone, right? On my soft phone, I'm only ever going to be able to see if he's on the soft phone, right? If he happens to be on a call on his Yealink phone, I won't know. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then you have the account realm. This is unique for each account. This is one of 3 pieces of information you would need to program a third-party soft phone application. Right, so let's say using Xlite from Counterpath, for example. It's also used for sending out a fax. Now, on Dash, if you're sending out a fax, you actually don't have to be logged into your Dash account. You just have to use the email address that's associated with your user, typically speaking. You create an email like you normally do, but instead of in the to field, instead of having your coworker Bob's email address, you would have the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number that you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? The system is not going to look at the subject line of the email. It's not going to look at the body of the email. Right? So if you want a fax cover sheet, you need to actually include that as part of your attachment. The system is only going to send one attachment. So make sure that's your PDF or TIFF file. Okay, up here at the top, we have some buttons. So we have the caller ID. This is your main company caller ID. Now, unfortunately, this dropdown doesn't work on the streaming software, but it shows any of your main numbers. So you select one, and that becomes your default or primary number, right? So like your VoIP phones will default to using this phone number as their outbound caller ID. And a couple other features use that. Next up, we have the company caller ID name, or CNAME. And this in this box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters, including spaces as special characters. Now, this is optional. You don't have to do this. But again, you're restricted to that 15 character, including spaces. So be aware of that. Now, the system will want you to enter the company caller ID emergency information, so E911. Wants a North American address, right? Just fill out the form and click on Save Changes. Now, if you did enter anything in the company caller ID name field, after you click Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their servers. Usually it's faster than that, but we can't always guarantee that because it's not our hardware. But once they do that, then when your VoIP phone's making an outbound call, right, we're transmitting this phone number and this text as part of your outbound caller ID. Now, it's possible when your call goes out, it goes through a carrier that doesn't support CNAME. If that happens, that CNAME information doesn't reach the destination. However, the most problematic part of it all is the cell phone carriers. When you're calling a cell phone, it's more than likely that your company the company name information here will not get displayed on the cell phone you're calling. Right? The cell phone carriers don't participate in CNAME with the other normal or non-cell phone telecoms. In fact, my cell phone provider wants to charge me an extra $10 a month to have CNAME information show up on my cell phone. All right, next up, we have hold music. So your Dash account will allow you to upload your own media files. It will play back .wav and .mp3 files. You want to make sure those files are recorded in mono, not in stereo, and you want to make sure they're under 1 megabyte in size. But you would click on Browse to find the file, and then click on the up arrow icon here to upload the file. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached one of your users, and then they have pressed hold on their VoIP phone. Once they do that, that's when this media file will play. Right, so it's after they've reached one of your staff members. And then go on Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of main number. So I'm going to click on main number here on the left. So here up the top, we have our main company numbers. So you see those 5 numbers. If I decide I no longer want one of these numbers to be a main number, let's say I want to remove this one here, I just click Unassign next to it. And now it's no longer a main number. Now the number is still on my account. I have not deleted it. I've just removed it from being a main number, meaning I could use it someplace else, right? I can assign it to a user. I can assign it to a group, etc. Now, down here at the bottom, I have 2 options to add numbers, right? So I can add from spare if I have extra, numbers I'm not currently using, or I can buy numbers. Adding from spare, when you click on it, it shows a list of your available spare numbers. And you can click on a check mark in front of it, and it will click Add Selected, and now it shows up here. Whereas buy numbers, you have 2 choices. You have local and toll-free. We'll start with toll-free. Choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with, and then click on Search. And the system will provide a list of available numbers. And you just want to click Add next to the number you want to add. Right? You can add multiple from this list if you want. And then you will click on By Numbers. Now, this list that you're seeing here, it's a dynamic list, meaning you're technically competing with other people in real time. Right? So if you added a number to your cart, but then let's say you got pulled away into a meeting, you come back an hour later, if you click buy, it's possible the transaction won't complete because someone else may have taken that number while you were in that meeting. So you want to complete the transaction all the way through. Now, when you click on buy numbers, you're not charged for it, right? It just adds it to your account. And then if you go over your allotment, then that will show up on your next invoice, right? But at that time of adding the number, there's no charge going through to your payment method. Under by numbers, if you click local, right, this lets you choose an area code that you want a phone number in. So you can click on enter an area code and click search. Now, any area code, including the toll-free prefixes, you can get this message where it says that there's no numbers currently available, right? That would indicate that this area code is exhausted, meaning there's no readily available phone numbers in that area code. At that point, I would recommend you double check with Google and search that area code to see if there's what's called an overlay area code. That just means two area codes share the same geographic boundaries, right? You could also find out if there's nearby area codes, like say an area code was split in two. So then you can go to the next door area code to see if that will work for you. 310, for example, here, that's a Los Angeles area code that is exhausted. I do know, however, that 424 is an overlay for that area code, right? So they cover the exact same spot. And you see I do have quite a few to choose from. And same process after that, you click add by numbers, and now the system's verifying it was truly available, i.e. so it didn't take it before I completed the transaction, and then adds it to my account. Now, for most places where you have a phone number, you have a little gear icon here. You can update the caller ID, right? So the outbound company caller ID name, and you can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So it shows up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. And part of the reason for that is that means you can then assign to your VoIP phones a specific phone number for E911 purposes only, right? So someone picks up a VoIP phone, dials 911, the address and phone number that you associated with it will then be transmitted to emergency services versus like your company headquarters for everybody. Right. And then we have prepend, which is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID information that shows up on your staff members' phones, on their VoIP phones specifically. Right, so like I can type in promo, click save changes, and whenever someone calls in on this 877 number, the word promo and then the phone number of the person who's calling in will show up on my staff members' VoIP phones. So that alerts my staff members that, oh, this is about the promotion we're running. And let me go ahead and remove a couple of these just because I don't need to have that many phone numbers. All right, so once you have our phone number, main number in place, you can then go to your company or your office hours strategy. You have two choices, right? 24-hour open in office, right? You're open 24/7, or custom office hours. If you select custom office hours, for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of it and just click on the box. And then in these boxes here to the right, use the pull down to select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option at the bottom here to say that your whole office is closed for lunch, right? If you do want that, click on the box in front of it to activate, and then enter your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time, and then click on Save Changes. Next up, we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. When you click on this, you have the options for single day, date range, and advanced. Right? Each one of those creates a new row. So like here, New Year's Day, you give it a name, you choose the month and the date, click on Save Changes. Right? Date range, like I have here for Christmas break. So give it a name, start date, end date, Save Changes. Now there's no year indicator here. So as a precaution, we recommend that you don't have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. When we first launched Dash, there was a problem with that. It hasn't come up since, but again, just to be safe, best not to include those two dates. That's why you see New Year's Eve appear as well. Advanced, like I have here for Thanksgiving, give it a name, choose the month, and then the second pull down, you have first through fifth, as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? And then click on Save Changes. And now we have incoming call handling. Now, this is for your main numbers, right? So those 5 phone numbers up here at the top. I have an open hours tab, I have a lunch hours tab, after hours, and holidays. Now, for most of you, you'll have 3 options, right? This call comes into the virtual receptionist. The second option here is call comes in, is the live operator answer. You're offering it, it's designed so you can offer the call to a person or group of people. If they can't answer, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. And this third option is you offer to a person, typically, or a group. If they can't answer, go to a voicemail box you specify. This fourth one here, this shows up under a couple circumstances. One, if our services team created an advanced call flow for you, in some fashion, right? So you had some kind of custom work done. Or if your account includes multiple auto attendants and you made one of those attendants available in main menu, then this fourth one will show up, right? So if it's not there on your screen, that's normal, right? This is a slightly advanced setup. Now, so during my open hours, calls coming into my virtual receptionist. This is a link. Going to open up a big old box. On the left is my main menu, right? So this is where I create, the routing options, right? 0 to leave a voicemail, 1 to speak to my sales team, 2 to speak to my support team, that sort of thing. Then down here where it says add route, when I click on add route, it gives me a new row. And then I have pull downs, right? So this first pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. Right, you can, yeah, doesn't always show up here. And then the second pull down is where you want it to go, right? Smart PBX directory, user directory, dial by name directory. Users, meaning you want when people press the menu option to go to a specific person. And it'll then, if they don't pick up, it goes to their voicemail. Call queues, this shows up if you're making use of ACD queues, which is an upgrade feature. They have advanced routing options. Groups, this is departments. These are included, but basically allows you to offer calls to multiple people. Has very limited routing options compared to queues. Devices means you're offering a call to a specific phone. So basically, if that phone doesn't have built-in voicemail, then you're relying on the caller to either be patient until someone picks up or they just hang up. And then you have voicemail boxes, so you can send callers to a specific voicemail box. Media, this would be playing a greeting file, right? So like for hours of operations or directions, just after the media file finishes playing, the call is ended. And then advanced call flows, if you have advanced call flows, like primary use case for this would be if you want to make use of submenuing, right? So like 1 for English and like 2 for Spanish. It looks like I have what I could say, and 3 for Chinese, right? Then I can make these secondary attendants have their own greeting, right, in their appropriate language, and the menu options would go to the people who speak the same language. Over here on the right, we have your greeting options, right? The greeting, that's where you say thank you for calling, right? You typically say your organization name, and then you give your customer, your inbound caller instructions, right? What to press to get to what, right? Press 1 to speak to sales, that sort of thing. First up, our first option is text to speech, right? So you type in a greeting, you click update, save, and save changes. Now, text to speech greeting, you're limited to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces, at least in my testing. I have sometimes been able to get a text to speech greeting to about 300 characters, but 250 has always worked. So I just say stay at 250. This creates a greeting in a computerized or robotic voice. Now, unfortunately, the system does not allow you to name this file yourself. It names it for you. In this case, since we're under my main open hours, right? It's going to name this text-to-speech file as my main open hours menu TTS, right, for text-to-speech. Let's say I set this up, I call in and oh, dang it, I forgot, menu option 3. So then I come in here, right? I edit this file, right? This text here. I click update, save, and save changes. The problem is now I'm going to have 2 greetings that are named main open hours menu TTS. And from any pull down where I can select a greeting, now I have 2 files that have the exact same file name. I don't know which one is which. So my recommendation is if you make use of text-to-speech greetings after you create one, right? Update, save, and save changes. On the left-hand side, go to your greetings tab, find that file, and rename it to something that you can recognize easily, right? At least like main greeting 1. And so you know that's the first one you made. Right, you can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Here's a box where you can name it and how it will display within your Dash account. You click on Choose File, right, to find the file on your computer. And then you click Upload and then Save and Save Changes. Choose from an existing recording. And you see here, I have a main open hours menu TTS. Now this pull down shows every media file on your account, right? Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. So that's why you want names that you can recognize fairly quickly. Recorded over the phone. Now, by default, it says it like this. The system wants you to use a phone registered to the account. That means a VoIP phone. Now, if you don't want to use a VoIP phone, let's say you have some on order and you just want to get a greeting in place, then what you would want to do is come down here under Settings, and then where it says Allow Outside Recording, turn that on. This turns on the ability to call in with any phone and record your main greeting over the phone. Right? The reason it's off by default is as a security feature, so some random person doesn't try to change your main greeting on you. So we do recommend you turn it back off when you're done. Now, you're still going to need this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So it only works during my open hours, right? So my open hours are 9 to 5. If I call in at 7 p.m., this PIN number will no longer work. So if you just signed up for us, for example, and if you called your main number, you're going to hear a message saying the greeting for this menu has not been created yet. It will then prompt you to enter the PIN number. All right, you enter the PIN number, and then it'll walk you through recording your main greeting. When you do that, it creates a file name for you. It typically uses part of your account number as part of the file name, if I recall correctly. If you already have a greeting in place, right? Let's say you started off with text-to-speech, and you had customers complain. They think, oh, that sounded kind of weird. So you're like, okay, let me just call in and record over the phone. You still need the PIN number, right? You can call in, you'll hear that text-to-speech greeting, you enter in the PIN number. The system will recognize it and then start walking you through recording over the phone. Now, you're still not given an opportunity to rename the file, so it just overwrites the existing file that's in place, right? So my main open hours menu TTS, right? The data, right, is overwritten. So what I typed in originally is gone. Instead, my voice and whatever script I read off becomes my main greeting, but the file name stays the same, right? And that I bring that up just because it's coming up with the holiday season, and sometimes people get in a rush and accidentally change their normal main greeting that they use for 3/4 of the year to their holiday greeting by accident. Then we have the professional recording services. When you click order down here towards the bottom right, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. And they handle their own billing, right, via credit card. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages. I expect in the next couple of weeks that they'll probably start having a promotion. They might wait for after Thanksgiving for that, but that's what they've done the last couple of years. So you might want to wait for that if you can. But then they'll send you an email with the file. So then you would just come here to upload your own file. All right, now we're on settings. Oops. Number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. So they get one try automatically built in, right? So if you put anything greater than 0 here, that means they get multiple attempts. Dialing timeout. This is how long the system listens for additional button presses. Right, so inbound caller calls in and they press 8. The system will then wait for, in this case, 1 second. Said, oh, they didn't enter anything else. I don't have a menu option 8. I don't have an extension 8. So that's an invalid entry. Now, if you set this retries up to 1, right, then the system would repeat the main greeting and allow that person to try again. Right? But since I have 0 retries, after that missed dial of pressing 8, the system would send the callers to my default action, right, the front desk group. Right? If I don't have this default action, then and the person made a mistake, then the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. All right, we already covered allow outside recording. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and this just means if your inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. Right? If you turn this off, that means your inbound caller is only restricted to the menu options you have listed here. Right, so they enter an extension number, that would count as a failed routing attempt. Turn that back on. And then we have the suppress the playing of the invalid entry. If you don't want the customers, or you don't want the system to play the message to the customer that we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, then you would click here to turn this on. And typically that's done when you have a default action in place. So that way, if they make a failed routing attempt, right, or a failed menu option, the system will then just transfer the call to wherever you want it to, or wherever you designated them to. So any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you want to click Save here at the bottom. It takes you back to your incoming call handling page, and you need to click Save Changes here. Right, so you're clicking Save twice. All right. Second option, live operator answer. So I'm offering it to my group. If my group does not pick up, right, or any members of that group, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Right, this is a pull down, so you can select, typically users, groups, or queues are what people mostly select. I haven't seen much the way. Sometimes people will select a specific device, or they want a specific phone to ring. That would be the next most one. Beyond that, mostly the other options aren't selected. And then when you click on virtual receptionist here, right, so this is during my lunch hours. So I would likely have a different greeting in place, and I would have different menu options. I can even have different settings. Let's go for my after hours. Here, you see my after hours. I'm offering it to Aaron, right? If he doesn't pick up, then it goes to his voicemail box, right? Again, I can select users, groups, queues. You can also select media file here, which, you have a greeting file play, right? Just explaining, like, hey, you called us after hours. Please stay on the line to leave a message, etc. And for instance, I don't have to put it to Aaron's voicemail box, right? So like I can put it here, so it's to a more general voicemail box. So Aaron gets offered the call initially for 20 seconds. That's hard coded, by the way. After 20 seconds, it would go to the main voicemail box. Yeah, so this third option, right, whoever you select it goes to first, the system only offers it for 20 seconds. After that, it goes to the voicemail box. That can be a problem if you select a user that is only accepting calls on a cell phone, because sometimes 20 seconds to a cell phone is not enough time. All right, main conference number. You can add and spare or buy new. Right, got the two options there. You also have the option to make a custom greeting. However, the custom greeting is only text to speech. Right, so you have 250 characters to work with. And then you would click on save. Now, if I left this disabled, right, when you call this phone number, the system still comes on and says, welcome to the conference, and then prompts them to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box, you can only have the one phone number, which is why I don't have the option to add from spare or buy new. You also have the option here to edit the fax box. And when you click on that, first up, inbound notification email. You put an email address in this box here to the right. This person or this email address will get an email every time a fax comes through. Now, if someone dials my fax box number, right, so let's say from their cell phone, they hear fax tones, we'll say most people hang up when they hear fax tones, like, oops, wrong number. This email address, Mark, he's going to get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, in those emails, right, they have the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and sometimes there'll be the caller ID information or the CNAM. So, and on some of those, it says wireless number. Right? When you see that, dead giveaway, someone dialed the wrong number. You don't have to worry about it. Now, if it's from a phone number you recognize and that you're expecting a fax from, you probably want to contact them to see what happened on their side. Right? Maybe their fax machine gave them some error details. The second field here is for email permissions. So this is who you are allowing to send out faxes. This is designed to put in your company's email domain. So that way anyone in your company can send a fax out, even if they're not a Dash user, right? Since they have the same email address as this domain, right? So VirtualPBX, anyone here can fax out from this account as long as they have the proper format, right? The +1 area code and phone number, @ and my account pro. And then you click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not others. If this is something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to our account services team in order to change your plan. Two major use cases, right? First, I've already touched on it, which is that submenu option, one for English, two for Spanish, etc. This is where you would create those secondary menus. The other use case is if you have multiple businesses, right, and they have their own phone numbers, their own main greetings, but you have the same staff people answering calls for these businesses. In that case, you'd set up your main or primary business under your main number. The other businesses, you'd come here, up here at the top, click on Add Attendant, right? You'd give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is not for your customers, it's for your staff, right? Literally, your staff could transfer a call from one business to the other, as long as they're on the same account. Then you click on Create Attendant. Then you can click on the name. So here's, by default, any new attendant you create starts off as unavailable in main menu, right? Meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? Secondary attendant, right? Secondary business. Now, I can click where it says unavailable in main menu, and now it becomes available in main menu. This means it's a submenu option, right? So it can show up under my main number. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Under the phone numbers box, this is where you would add a phone number, right? Add from spare, buy new. So that way this attendant can have its own phone number people can dial into. The extension box, you can have multiple extensions on an attendant. I don't know why you would, but you could. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. So you see I have open hours, after hours, or sorry, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? Those times match what we set up under the main number. So if you have one business that's 24/7 and another that's Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, right? By default, you're not going to be able to make that work on one account. Now, in that scenario, you'd want to talk to our account services team. So that way they can gauge if you need to have two separate accounts or if we can do custom work to keep both businesses on the same account. And that just depends on what you're going to do and how often you need to change things. Right? And then any changes you make under like the virtual receptionist, right? That's the only option you have for all of these, right? You would click save within the virtual receptionist and then click save changes here. Devices tab shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, so we can send a call to it or receive a call out from it. All right, black means you've turned it off over here on the towards the far right. And red means it's unregistered, meaning we can't currently send a call to it, right? So for like a soft phone or even the web phone, that could be someone's just simply not logged in, right? Could be something more problematic. Up here at the top, that's where you would add new devices. Now, you don't have to add devices here. You can add it directly to a user, for example, which is what I typically recommend. I find it easier just to add it directly to the person you want to have the device. But here, you can add SIP phone, right? That's that physical VoIP device. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a lot of models to choose from, some don't. But you need to find the make and model of the phone that you want to work with. And then you need to give it a device name, right? I usually say person's name and then the word phone, right? So like Bob's phone, or location, right? Like kitchen phone, right? Break room phone, etc. And then you need to enter the MAC address. The MAC address is unique for each device, typically a sticker on the back or the bottom of the phone. Or if the phone's plugged in under its like basic settings or status, usually the MAC is listed there. You would enter that information here, and then you would click on Save Changes. Once you do that, this box disappears, and then at some point you probably want to go to the User tab over here to the left and assign it to a specific user. Now, after you've added a device to the account, like I have the Cisco phone here, if I click on the little wrench icon here, the next thing you want to do is come here, go to Advanced, Miscellaneous, and then click on Unlock. Right, that just tells the system, hey, we're going to provision this phone, so make sure we can have proper connection. Click on Save Changes. Within the dashboard, you're done. However, you need to get into that phone's web user interface, and basically you're entering in a URL, telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages. You're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers, right? The proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some additional settings to verify, right? But once you go through that, you click, update or save, right, to save the changes, and then you click Auto Provision Now. The phone then gets the config file. It's going to typically reboot twice, if not 3 times. And after that, it should then show up as a green device here. Cell phone and landline are the same, right? And when you click on it, it opens a box. And let me go down here. So you give it a name, and then in the number field, you put +1 area code and phone number. And then you click on Save Changes. Right now, right here under Advanced Options, this is the default setup for any new landline or cell phone that you add. Little brief explanation here, right? Call comes in and we're sending it to your cell phone, right? Your cell phone will ring. Typically, you'll pick up, and then you'll hear from the system, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call, right? It's also a way for you to let you know, oh, it's a business call. Right, you press 1, you're connected, you begin speaking with the other person. Now, that's great if it's actually going to your cell phone. But let's say, for instance, you've contracted out with a automated answering service to handle your calls for after hours. They gave you a phone number, right? So let's say they gave you this phone number and say, hey, so for us to handle your calls, just have them, call this phone number or forward to this phone number. So on your Dash account, you would create a cell phone or a landline device, put that phone number as a contact number here. But what you would want to do under advanced options, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here. So this does is when we send a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about this is a forwarded call, please press 1. There's no need to press 1, right? And this is because, again, in this case, you're saying that, hey, I'm sending calls to an automated answering service. It's not a person who's picking up. It's a system, machine, right? It doesn't have fingers to press 1. It doesn't know to press 1. It's just designed to pick up a call. So by putting that check mark here, you're letting our system understand that, hell, when we hear that pickup tone, just let the call go through and connect it. So that way your automated answering service can handle it. Now, if this is your actual cell phone and you have this box checked, what can happen is your cell phone voicemail picks up, right? Well, that's a pickup tone still. So that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box versus your dash voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing that some people also look at is this one here, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into your main number, it gets routed to your cell phone. Your cell phone rings and you see on your cell phone's display, customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it and you're tired of all the political calls you've been getting and you just let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to reconnect with customer Mary, maybe not. What you can do is uncheck this. So now when a call comes to your cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you see your main company number. Go back to the dashboard real quick, hopefully. Right? This phone number you selected here, that's the phone number that's going to show up on your cell phone. So that's a way to let you know visually that, oh, this is a work call. Probably worth it for me to pick up. The option for soft phone, now on the devices page, when you add a soft phone here, you can only add a third-party soft phone, right? Meaning you're using someone else's soft phone application. You give it a name. You want to copy and paste the SIP username here. Click on the SIP password box so you can copy and paste the SIP password. Do not change it. And then copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you need from us in order to program or provision that software application. Right, click on Save Changes or Create Device, excuse me, and then go to the user and assign it to the user that you want it on. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to add that directly to the user. And we'll touch on that when we get there. The other thing you would also want to add directly to the user is the web phone, right? The web phone uses your dash login information, so it does you no good to add it here as a device. Now, if you click on the little wrench icon here, sometimes we're double checking the audio for a physical phone, whether you're using it as an auto provision device like the Cisco or a third-party soft phone, right? But you're still programming a physical device. You want to make sure that G711A and G711U are the codecs in use. Now, if you're strictly using software, right? So a soft phone, and if we go to the audio here, you want to make sure Opus is in use. You could use the other two, but Opus has a smaller packet size, so in case you're using the mobile connection, that's going to be easier for your network. Also, under advanced, that's where you can select the E911, right? You can select the phone number that's associated with it. And then you can have the specific address for that phone number or this person's phone. All right, Greetings Manager shows all your greetings on the account. This means all your media files, right? You have to see the name. The source upload means you uploaded the file, right? TTS, text to speech. And then recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have the option here in this column here to play back any greeting directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, the next column over lets you download the file to your system. Also, this is in case you want to make sure you have a copy of your files someplace other than just with us. The little wrench icon here, you can change the name of the file or you can delete it if you no longer need it. And at 46 files, I probably need to go through this at some point and turn it down. Up here at the top, you can add a new greeting, meaning you're uploading a file. You give it a name, find the file on your computer or device, click create greeting. It will then upload it and add it here, right? It doesn't assign it anywhere, but it's now available for you to use somewhere else. Next up, we have groups. This is short, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments, right? Group people answer calls about a similar topic. Up here at the top, you click on new add group. You give it a name and an extension number, right? And then you click and drag your staff members over to the right that you want to be in the group. And then you click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name, right? You can always change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease this, right? And this is how many times the system offers the inbound caller to your group members, right? So in this case, I have it at 2, means it's offered to my group members twice, right? So if they don't answer the first time, they get a second chance. And then click on Save Changes. You also have the option to delete the group if you no longer want it. Then we have the members box. Oops. Do that again. So here you see your staff members who are in this group. And right now, they're only set for 0 seconds, right? So not very long to answer the call. But you click and drag the sliders. So I can do something like this. This is referred to as blast ringing or ring all. So I'm trying to say, hey, calls come in and ring everybody at the same time for the same amount of time, right? Until someone picks up. Now, when calls come into a group and they're offered to a user, it's going to ring all that the user's devices, right? There's a user feature called Follow Me. Calls from the group ignore that feature. They say, nope, I see 3 devices. I'm going to ring all 3 devices. Now, they can answer calls from cell phones, landlines, VoIP phones. Doesn't matter. Excuse me. You have a couple other routing options here. So one thing to know up here along the top, right? This is your timestamps, so you can change the total ring time within the group. You also have this distribute button. If you click on that, so now I'm ringing in order, right? That means every time a call comes into this group, it's going to start with Bob, then go to Aaron, then Peter, etc. So let's say a call comes in, rings to Bob. Bob answers it, right? He's talking to the customer. If a second call comes into the group, it still tries to offer it to Bob first, right? So if Bob has call waiting enabled on his phone, he'll hear a call waiting beep, right? If he doesn't, he won't hear it, which is what I would recommend in this scenario. So after the 24 seconds, then it would offer it to Aaron, right? So if your groups can get busy, right, then you'd want more of an overlap. So that way that second caller isn't waiting as long to speak to somebody. Right, but again, you can adjust the sliders as you see fit. Now, if you want to change the order, let's say Bob has a big project that he needs to work on. I can click and drag him. Now, he's still at 0 seconds, so he's still first. But now I can click distribute, and now he's last. Right, and like I can, again, adjust sliders so I can have a little bit more overlap in case it's a slightly busier season than it had been previously. If I need to remove someone, I just click on the remove box here to the right. Down here at the bottom left, I can click on add user so I can add additional staff members. When you add a new staff member, so we'll add Jean, right? Here is she's at the beginning, right? So I would click distribute. So now she's at the end, or I'd put her back towards the top if I need her to. Any changes you make, click on save changes. Right? Groups have to have an extension. They can have multiple if you want them to. they can have phone numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. Now, if you add a number to a group, like I have up here, actually on the other 3 groups, right? This phone number is not a main number or auto attendant number. So it does not have hours of operation or after hours or holidays, meaning these phone numbers are available for 24/7, right? So if you have staff members who are using their personal cell phones and they're in a group that has its own phone number, they can get a call at 2 in the morning, potentially. All right, groups have features. First up is ring back. So when a call comes into a group, right, it reaches out to your staff members phone starts to ring, right? That ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller so they hear something, right? Ring back. Right? Now, if you don't want that ringing sound to be transmitted back to the inbound caller, you can enable the ring back feature and upload a media file, right? .wav.mp3 recorded under 1 megabyte. Click on Save Changes. Now, if for some reason when we're offering that call to your user and their phone doesn't ring, let's say we get a busy tone, well, there's no ringing sound coming back to your inbound caller. So the ringback file won't play. So the inbound caller hears silence until a device starts to ring, right? So that's a reason to have multiple people at the beginning, especially of your routing options there. Next up, this next action, to me, this is the most important feature. When you enable it, it's if no one answers the call, right? So none of your staff members were able to answer the call. What do you want the system to do with the call? You have a pull down here, so you can send it to a voicemail box, another user, another group, a queue, back to your main menu, etc. And then you click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, so they can send it to an alternate device that they're, versus the one they normally use. The caller ID prepend feature, this is for your VoIP phone users. If you enable it, you can enter additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID, right? Again, to try to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. And then click on Save Changes. Numbers, this takes you to your numbers in use page. And this just shows us where your numbers are assigned, right? You can't unassign them or assign numbers here. You can hit the gear icon so you can update caller ID, E911, and prepend. Spare numbers tab. This is where you would go if you want to remove numbers. So for instance, if you keep your eyes up here where it says numbers, right? I click on the numbers I want to get rid of from my account. And now I have this option here to delete. Confirm the deletion. Click on continue. And now I've removed those 3 phone numbers from my account. So I've reduced my total number of phone numbers. Likely I've saved some money on my bill. Now I can buy numbers here, right? Local toll free, and they would just be added as more spare numbers. Port starts the port process. All right, you give it a name, choose local toll free. It then's going to ask you to upload a copy of your bill within the last 30 days in a PDF format. It was going to ask you for the address associated with it, the phone numbers you want to port. It's going to ask you for the BTN, which is the billing telephone number, right? So if you're just porting one phone number, typically that's the BTN, so you don't have to worry about it. If you're porting multiple phone numbers, you probably want to double check with the current carrier for what the BTN is. In some cases, you do need a PIN number to port. That's typically from mobile carriers. That's a security feature. Once you port a mobile phone number to VirtualPBX, the cell phone number that it's associated with will stop working until you add a new phone number from your cell phone provider. Then you can download a blank letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed letter of agency. Now, the letter of agency asks you for things like the company name and address. That should match what is on file with your current carrier, right? So if you're porting from AT&T to VirtualPBX, the information on the LOA should match what AT&T has on file for you. It does need to be signed. whether that means you printed it and signed it manually or you use a digital signature file, right? But typing in your name twice or, printing your name twice, right, or typing and then printing, going to get rejected every time and delay your port request. Once we get that, we submit the port request. When you go through the system like this, you'll get an automated email saying you submitted a port request. You should get a second email from our porting team by the next business day saying, yes, we did get your port request and we've submitted it. Or if there was an immediate problem, they would have said, hey, we're missing this piece of information. In terms of time frame, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. We can get rejections, right? And we're not always given specifics for the rejections. We get things like address mismatch. They don't tell us which part of the address was right or wrong. They just say it didn't match. For things like that, we double check to make sure we didn't have a typo anywhere. And especially for address, where it's possible, like on your LOA, you put one address, but your copy of bill has a different address. We'll try both addresses, right, just to see if one goes through. But once we rule all that out, then we'll reach out to you saying, hey, we got a rejection for this reason. Please double check with the current carrier to find out what the correct information should be. All right, users. This is where you add more users to your account. People with the gray person icon, right? That's your standard user. People with the blue suit, those are your system admins, meaning they can do all the things we've been talking about, or I've been talking about, I guess. Up here at the top, you click on Add User, and you fill out the form. Major key here is this one here. The email address used for login has to be unique to each user, right? You cannot reuse an email address for multiple users. But first name, last name, you create a password for them, and you enter the extension number you want them to have. Right? This system started off with extension 1000, so it's suggesting the next one available is 1022. I don't have to follow that, right? I can say, nope, I have a new set of people for a new business. I'm starting this off with extension 8000. Now, by default, the system will want to create a voicemail box for the user, right? That's intrinsically tied to the user. So if I created this user, I added a VoIP phone to them, it get registered. They can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98. That will log them into the voicemail box I just created for them. The system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box and then walk them through recording their voicemail box greeting. Right? Get them all set up in one go. Here we got the add the user to the company directory. You can change that at any time. Here's the option to send emails to an alternate address. So by default, if the system needs to send emails to the user, it uses the email address used for login, right? For things like password resets or voicemail notifications. If I don't want it to go to that email address or the user doesn't want it to go to that address, right? I click here on this box and then I enter a different email address here. So that way, instead, the system will send emails to this different address. Again, you can change that at any time. And then here, I think this one's important, send credentials to the user, right? So after you click on Create User, the system will generate an email to the email address used for login or the alternate address if you selected that. Sends an email saying, hey, welcome to your Dash account. Here's your login information. Right? If you need to add multiple, you would do create user and add another. The system would still send out that email, but then reload this box so you can add another person. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right? So if you need to, you can change their name. Here you have the option to change their credentials. Right? So you can change their email address or their password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email. So that way they can create their own password. Right? Changing the voicemail box PIN number. Just enter in 4 digits, click on Save Changes. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's your option to enter or remove them from the company directory. Over here, this pull down lets you change a user into an admin or an admin back to a user. This one is for the time zone, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps, for instance, have the correct time for this person. Little flag icon is the display language for the dash pages for this user. It can change from English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout, default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time to a landline or a VoIP device. If someone's using a cell phone only, then you'd want to increase that to 30 seconds, if not more. If you enable the follow me feature on a user, this will be grayed out because then you can use the follow me feature to adjust the ring time how you need to. We have the extension number box, right? So again, users have at least one extension number. You can have multiple if you want them to. Right? Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. You can add from spare, buy new. Just like in groups, right? This phone number is available 24/7. You have the devices box for a user. And let's see if I have. Right, so you can do add to phone, etc. The soft phone, I don't know if it's going to work here or not. When you add a soft phone directly on the users, you're going to have this option here to say where it says use third-party application, right? You can click on that to say use VirtualPBX application, although I'm likely to get a warning message. Now, each email address you have for a user can be associated with one VirtualPBX soft phone, right? That's what this warning message is, saying, hey, this email address already has a soft phone associated with it. Okay, let's see if I can add one here. Nope. But basically, assuming your email address wasn't already in use, you would give it a name and then click on device and then save changes. And then the system would email the user with the login information for their soft phone, as well as download links, right? So the VirtualPBX soft phone uses different credentials than what your users use to log into dash.virtualpbx.com. Right, whereas the web phone uses the exact same credentials, right? So if people have problems with multiple usernames and passwords, you may want to use a web phone, but again, that restricts them to a computer with Chrome or Firefox. The soft phone, right, you can use on a computer. You could also use it on a cell phone, right? And the app is available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Right. You also have the option for the web phone, which again, I find easier just to do here. Right. You just give it a name, click on create device, and then click on save changes. And then it would use Bob's email address and password to log in to webphone.virtualpbx.net. User features, caller ID number. This is for users with their own phone number. If you turn it on, you're saying their outbound caller ID will be this phone number you select and save changes, right? So if Bob didn't already have his own phone number, I wouldn't be able to enable this feature. But all I'm saying is that when Bob makes an outbound call, by default, his outbound caller ID will be his own phone number, this 703 number, right? If I leave this off, that means his outbound caller ID from his VoIP phone is the 408 number I have set up under my dashboard page. The virtual text application is a new feature. You click enable, you select the phone number, right? Main number, auto attendant number, or a phone number associated directly with the user. Click on save changes. When you click on save changes, your user gets an email welcoming them to the virtual text app. They can download the app to their cell phone. They can also go to virtualtext.app in a web browser. They're going to have their own login for this as well. The main feature about virtual text is you can share a number among multiple staff members, right? So let's say your main number, for example, can be shared among your entire staff, so that there's always someone available to respond to texts from your customers. All right, voicemail box. This is a pretty standard setup here. Now, the transcribe is technically a plan-specific feature, and all it is the system listens to the voicemail message that was left and tries to type it out into the email notification to the best of its ability. Right? So if people are not speaking into their microphone or there's lots of background noise that their mic picked up, there will be errors in that particular scenario. If you're interested in that, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. But in general, it's voicemails to email is enabled, and that means attach the message to the email attach an MP3 attachment to the email notification to your staff member. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. Once they get to 100 messages, they are full and cannot accept any more. Again, by default, there's a couple of different ways your users can check their voicemails, right? First, they can call in, right? Enter in, call your main number, so let's say from their cell phone, right? They call in to your main number, they can hit *97. The system will prompt them for the voicemail box number and their PIN number, and they can listen to the voicemails that way, right? And they'll have the option to delete the messages there. They can also log into the user portal, right? dash.virtualpbx.com and listen to their voicemails right on the browser and delete them. Now, the system by default is going to send them an email with that voicemail attachment, so they can at least listen to the messages, but that doesn't actually delete it from their voicemail box. Now, if you have staff members that are not good about deleting, then you have this option here to delete the messages from the database after the notification is sent. Right? So then voicemail is created. System sends out the email, right? With here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved. And then it will then delete that voicemail from the system, right? So that way the voicemail box will not get full. Now, that means your user can only be checking their voicemails via email. So if for some reason they're not getting their emails, they may lose some voicemail messages. So something to be aware of. Right, follow me. Yeah, this is for users with multiple devices. And you could set up something like this. Now, when you first enable it, actually here, let's just disable it. Oops. We'll come back here. Right, it looks like this. You have to tell the system what devices you want the system to use. Right, you uncheck what you want to use. So we'll just use all three. Just like in groups, right? I have timestamps across the top here, and I have the option to distribute. I can click and drag, so I can move devices around, and then click distribute again, etc. And then click on save changes. Now, don't forget, if Bob's part of a ring group, the calls from the group are going to ignore the follow me features. Fax box, you can choose to have a user have their own fax box if you want them to. And then you'll have the option of selecting a spare number, buying a new number, or assign a new extension. I recommend using a phone number so that way this user can send and receive faxes. Right? If you assign a new extension, this person can only ever receive faxes. They'll never be able to send out. Right? And that's because the system uses their personal fax box information to send the fax out. An extension number does not have valid caller ID, right? Because a fax is still a call. So it needs to have a valid phone number. The other disadvantage of assigning an extension is you're relying on that inbound, the person who's making the fax to you, to know the extension number and the ability to send to an extension number, right? So like some electronic fax services may not allow you to send to an extension number, right? They may not have that capability, or if they do, they charge for it. Even for an analog, standard fax machine, right? The person has to either sit there at the fax machine, listen to it, and then enter the extension number, or know how to enter the phone number with some pauses and then the extension number. All right, conference bridge. When you click enable, the only thing as admin you really need to do is set up a PIN number. The enable video conference, that's going to be for your staff members only, right? Anyone outside your organization won't be able to make use of that. Call forwarding. Your users can turn call forwarding off or on their own. System admins would need to set up failover mode. Failover mode is for your VoIP phone users. And all that it is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, loses connection, and a call comes to the user at that time, the system will automatically forward to the phone number you designate, right? +1 area code and phone number, no parentheses, dashes, or spaces, and you would click on Save Changes, right? So that's a way for a staff member to know, hey, there's something wrong with my internet or my VoIP phone anyway. Like maybe the dog ran by and ripped the cable out of my VoIP phone and I didn't notice it. For your staff members, they can do the call forward, turning off and on, either via the user portal or directly from their VoIP phone. Customized call recording, when you first enable it, it looks like this. Again, you need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Right, inbound internal coworker call, right? So coworker Aaron called Bob. Right, inbound external customer Mary called Bob. Right, outbound internal, that would be Bob called coworker Aaron. Right, outbound external means Bob called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some level of storage or data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that, we don't cut you off, right? You just have a per gigabyte overage. For specifics of that, if you just signed up, check the pricing page. Otherwise, you'd want to check with our account services team. They can let you know what your storage amount is and what the overage would be if you go over. Call recordings are stored at recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses your Dash login, so you can view the recordings, listen to them, and delete them. Music on hold. You can choose to have your users have their own hold music. Right? You just upload a .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. So this would supersede the music on hold under the dashboard page for this user. Right? Do not disturb. If you enable that, that means the user is not accepting calls. Hot desking. This is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID. Up to you if you want to create a PIN number, then you click on Save Changes. In this case, what this does is for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. Bob comes in the office on Tuesday, sits down at desk number 2, picks up the VoIP phone there, hits *11. Right? That toggles hot desking on, enters his hot desk ID. The system will then tell him calls will now be sent to this device. Right? So the rest of his workday, he's at desk number 2. Any call to his user is going to ring at that VoIP phone he's sitting at. Right, so he can then handle the call, etc. End of his day, picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking on that phone. Next time he's at the office, right? Someone, Angela's sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning. He sits down at desk number 6. Same thing, right? Picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID. Now he's getting calls at desk number 6. All right, voicemail boxes. This will show all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has an entry in the user field, that means that was a user voicemail box, right? It was created at the same time the user was. If it's blank, that means it was either a system voicemail box, like the main voicemail box, or one you created up here at the top, where you click on Add Voicemail Box, give it a name, voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and you click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, right, you can always view this page, so that way you know what to dial into and with a PIN number, so you can record things over the phone or check voicemail messages over the phone. But if you go to Advanced Greeting Media, so for any voicemail box you create manually on this page, you'd want to upload or choose an existing file so it has a a greeting file associated with it. Now, by default, the system will say, please leave a message already, but if you want something customized, you'd want to do it here. The temporary file, this is for your out of office or vacation message, right? So if you have something selected under temporary, it plays, right? It'll supersede anything you have selected under media. Once you put temporary back to none, then whatever you have selected under the media file will play. Then recipients. Now, your user voicemail boxes have one built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But any voicemail box you create here, you would click add new recipient and then enter the email address, right? If you only need to add one, click on save changes. If you have to add multiple, click add again, enter in the second email address and the third and the fourth, etc., until you're done, and then click on save changes. And then options. So once a voicemail box has a media file in place and a recipient in place, you can click on already set up. Now, here's your option. Do you want to delete after notification, and you want to make sure the attached voicemails to email is enabled. And then click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is. Now, this feature is not enabled on accounts when you first sign up. This is something you have to request from our account services team. This allows you to call into your system, right? So like a main number that goes to your virtual receptionist, and you can log in over the phone and then make an outbound call through the system, right? So that way you call from your cell phone, right? Log in over the phone, you make an outbound call. It's not going to be your cell phone number that shows up on the outbound call ID, but your main company number. So once you've talked to account services, this feature would show up here. Come here and click enable. Now, by default, the system assigns a PIN number, and that's it. If you leave it like this, that means you need to make it a menu option under your virtual receptionist or under one of your secondary auto attendants. Not recommended. So I would say click on edit settings here, and then click on add extension. Now, again, the system's going to say, hey, your next extension is 1022. I'm like, no. I say use an extension number that's not part of any normal sequence you're currently using. You can change the PIN number at the same time if you want to. Now click on Save Changes. So now you can call into your main number, right? That goes to the virtual receptionist. You can enter in this extension number that hopefully only your staff members know, and maybe only you know, or at least only your system admins might know. Right? Then the system will prompt you for the PIN number. Then you'll hear dial tone, so then you enter area code and phone number, make an outbound call. And again, the main number the phone number that shows up as the outbound call ID, right, under your dashboard, the caller ID button, it's that phone number that shows up. Now, the reason that this is not enabled on new accounts on sign up is because this is a fraud vector, right? If you have it as a menu option, for instance, right, someone might hit the menu option by accident and then be prompted for the PIN number. Some people view that as a challenge and will decide to try to figure out what the PIN number is to figure out what happens next, right? Then they hear dial tone. That's like, oh, well, let me enter a phone number. And now they're making outbound calls on your account, and you may not know about it right away. The one way you might know about it right away, though, is via your call logs. Call logs show your call activity on the account. And I'm going to go back to, all right, this is beginning of the month. So the green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. You can click on it to expand to see who it went to, possibly. Basically, this is just showing one leg, right? Call came into the system. At best, they got the voicemail, right? If I had another line down here, that would show the second leg where the system reached out to a device. All right, we have, this is an outbound call. Although I'm not showing what device. So let's go back to custom. Let's go to, so custom lets you go back up to 12 months. Right, you click filter, and it's going to show you your call history here. Let's go further back here. Let's see if we can find. Huh. So here, I at least can see that this was a VoIP device making an outbound call. Thought I had more calls of going into devices though. Sorry about that. But generally speaking, you'll have multiple legs depending on how many devices a call reached out to. The little fire hydrant here creates an email for you to support@virtualpbx.com and includes the technical details of the call. If you do that, please type in the body of the email, like what you experienced, so we know the context about why you're sending that in. You can download, right, from any of these tabs. Just downloads a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a lot more information out of the logs than what's displayed here. If you need to go further back than 12 months, you'd have to send a call in, either call in or email into our support team. We'd have to create an escalation to our engineers. They can go back up to 18 months. After that, data is no longer available. So if you need your call log information as for like some sort of compliance reasons, I would recommend you do that every month. Right. So basically come to the custom setup each month, download it, save it to your system. Feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are just ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phones. Right. So this information's here. Any of your web phone feature users can also get to the feature codes page. It's also a page on our website. Also on our support pages, there's a document called the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the feature codes and context how to use them. Right? You have a little context here as well, and the little question mark icons. Over here, let's go to the blacklist. Blacklist is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right? So you're saying, oh, you can't call me anymore. So you click Edit Blacklist, click Add to create a new list. Otherwise, click on an existing list. Right? You need to give it a name. You have the option here to block anonymous. Right? If you turn this on, like this one is, that means when calls come in and they don't display their caller ID information, right? We're blocking them from reaching the system. Right? They get busy tone. If I turn this off, right, that means I'm allowing those anonymous calls to come through. Right? Then you have your list of numbers. You click here where it says add number, +1, area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Right? If you need to add multiple, then click add again, create a new row, and repeat. Once you're done, you click on save. Up here at the top right, you click on back to settings. And then you make sure your list is over here on the right under selected. And then you click update. So now everything on these three lists, right, every phone number, they get blocked. They're not reaching my system. They get busy tone. Faxes, this takes you to your fax manager. It's also an included feature. You can get to any fax box on the account. Here I'm on the inbound fax tab, so I can see the faxes that come in, right? The date, the time, phone number involved, number of pages. I can download the file. I can also choose to remove a fax, right, in case I'm concerned about storage. outbound fax tab, again, you get to any fax box on the account. You can see the status of the faxes, the date, the time, phone number involved. When you see a failure, it might be worth to click the details icon here at the far right. Every now and then you get some additional information, right? Status failed. We kind of knew that already since we had the big red failure there. Let's see if there's any further. Oh, actually here, right? So fax job timeout negotiate. So because we're on the outbound fax tab, I know that the system called the other fax number, right? So we made an outbound call, and we actually connected, but there was a problem between whatever fax machine we were connected to and us, right? We didn't get the proper challenge and accept codes, basically. So the fax failed. Now, that could just be retry. That could be, you might want to call the other person and say, is there something wrong with your fax machine? Now we have the email to fax logs, right? This shows you basically faxes the system had problems with the request itself, right? So we never called the other number, right? Thumbs down tells you there's a problem. Click on the little eyeball icon here to the far right, and you can see like, oh, under errors, no valid attachment. Now, that could be no attachment at all, right? It could be that this person tried to fax a JPEG instead of a PDF or TIFF file. Right. You can also see like the email address they sent to, or who they went from, and the address they went to, so that if there's a problem with the format, you could also see that as well. Number manager just takes you back to your spare numbers, right? So you can remove numbers, port numbers, etc. Oops. Reports would open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This would have its own login information. This will take you to the advanced reporting feature, right? So this is a plan-specific feature. Allows you to create your own reports. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on this streaming software, but if you go to our YouTube channel under videos, do a search for advanced reporting demo, and you can see some of what can be done there. And if you're interested and don't have it as an option, you'd want to talk to our account services team to see if your plan includes it so they can enable it, or if you need to change the plan. Voicemail manager. This allows you as an admin to get to any voicemail box on the account. Whoops, wrong thing. Right, so you can see the new messages and the deleted messages. Right, so you can play them back, you can download them. Right, you could move a voicemail to the appropriate voicemail box. You can also change its status. Right, again, so like if this was at 100 messages, I could go about removing them. ACD queues. ACD stands for automatic call distribution. It's a call center feature. This is an upgrade feature, so it's possible you may need to change plans and then, right, which could increase your bill, and then have an upgrade fee to add queues. Now, we have two kinds of queues available currently. First are the standard queues. We also have ACD Queues Pro. Unfortunately, accounts can only have one or the other. They cannot have both, so I can only show you the one. And the reason I'm showing standard queues is because on our YouTube page, or YouTube channel, right, under videos, we have the ACD Queues Pro demo, which shows you how they work and what they look like. Now, these have some advanced routing features that groups don't have. It also gives your users a little bit more control, right? They can log in and out of the queues, whereas they can't in a group, right? They can mark themselves away from the queue as well. Whereas in groups, their only option is do not disturb, which means no call can get to them, right? Whereas if a queue member marks themselves away, someone can still call them directly, right? Enter their extension number. So you click on Add New Queue, right, over here to the far right. Right, I'm just going to click on the little gear here for an existing queue. So first you give it a name, and then you choose either an extension number or a phone number. Right, a queue can have one or the other, cannot have both. Right, whereas groups have both, can have both. Right, they at least have to have an extension number. Now, queues can still be a menu option, right, for your virtual receptionist. That has shown up a couple of times. Now, under configuration, you have the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, this pull down doesn't work. Round robin means it'll equalize out over time. Most idle means whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes into the queue. Least calls means the least amount of connected calls, right? So if Bob has spoken to 2 people, Mary has spoken to 5, next call comes in, goes to Bob, right? And then least offers is the combination of completed and missed calls. So let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5. Under least offers, Mary gets the next call that comes in. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono. For queues, you can upload a 5 megabyte file. ACD Keys Pro also have the ability to have multiple media files, right? So you can play in sequence. You can also play or announce their wait in line or announce their position in line. The queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time your inbound callers wait on hold, right? So 240 seconds. Queue call limit is the amount of people who can wait on hold. So I'm allowing up to 100 people wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already speaking to my staff members. If I change this to 0, that means there's no limit. Most people choose something like anywhere from like 5 to 10. Or just leave it put it at 0 so that way they don't have to worry about it. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged into this queue and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that inbound caller as if they already hit this 240-second time limit. Excuse me. All right, the escalation call flow after timeout is after that 240 seconds, where do I want to send a caller? Voicemail box, main menu, a group, different queue, specific user, specific phone, etc. The zero out call flow, if you choose something in this pull down, then you enable the ability for the inbound caller to press 0 while they wait on hold to leave the queue, right? And you have to select something so that way they have someplace to go. Voicemail, back to the main menu, user, another queue, etc. If you leave it on none, that means they cannot press 0 to leave the queue. The agent behavior section, agent recovery time measured in seconds, right? How much time an agent is given between calls, right? So Bob takes a call from the queue, and right now I have this set at 0. So if there's he ends his call with his first caller, if there's someone already waiting in the queue, his phone starts ringing immediately, right? If I set this to 10, right, when he's done with that first call, even if there's people waiting in the queue, right, the system will wait for 10 seconds and then offer him that call, right? Gives him a chance to, catch his breath, sip of water, update his notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, if my staff member misses a call, the system automatically turns their status from ready to away, right? So they're not going to be offered calls. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, right? Queues were originally designed to only send calls to VoIP devices. We've recently allowed the ability to send queue calls to a cell phone or a landline. So if you have cell phone and landline users in your queue, you're going to want to change the timeout to at least 30 seconds. One thing to keep in mind about calls that go to a cell phone or a landline, I probably should have brought this up a long time ago. That's an endpoint, right? Your cell phone user is not able to transfer calls to another staff member. Your VoIP phone users, that's not a problem. Transferring is built into the phone and has the proper signaling, right? Basically, but cell phones, landlines, they're not able to transfer calls. All right, so once you have queues created, over here on the left, you click on the little members icon, and you would click manage members, right? So like if you just started with us, you would have no people listed here, right? So these people on this list, these are people who are available to be in my queues, right? I click on manage members, list on the right, already available to be in my queues, list on my left, they can be made to be available in my queue, right? So click on Bob, and I click Add as Members. Now, I haven't assigned Bob to a specific queue yet. I've just added him to be available in the queues. All right, then I would go back to my members, or my queues page. And if I click on an existing queue, right, I have no one logged in. I can click on Add Agents. So I can see who's already assigned. I can click and drag and add Bob to it, for example. Once you've assigned agents, then you can click Add Managers, right? So you can move one of your staff members. So we can move Bob and make him a manager, for instance. And then save changes. Now, for your staff members, right? Once you tell them, hey, you're part of a queue, right? They should be log into dash.virtualpbx.com, and they should click on ACD queues. Right? They'll get the starting up the app. Up here at the top, click on Begin Session. Now, it defaults to putting you away, and you see I'm here in this queue here. Right? I'm red, so I'm away. Especially that first time logging in, or if there's ever been a change to my devices. Click on the little phone icon here, and I select one of my devices. Now, by default, the system puts you on Select All. We recommend that you pick a specific device. Right? Click on the phone icon to remove that, and then click where it says Away, and mark yourself as ready. So now you're green, you're ready to accept calls. Right, so call comes in the queue. When I'm offered a call, my bar here turns light blue. When I'm on a connected call from the queue, it turns a darker blue. If I'm on an outbound call or someone called my extension number directly, my bar turns yellow. If I'm on wrap-up time, it turns gold. Right, so like my lunchtime, I would mark myself away, right? So that way I'm not offered calls during lunch. End of my day, I clicked End Session. Oops. All right, dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So this first one here is, I called it 408. I chose a 48 number on my account from this pull down, and I just simply said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number from their VoIP phones, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number I specified. Right? Basically, no thinking on the part of my staff members. They'll just automatically change it to, so it looks like a local call to whoever I'm calling. This one up here, I instead created a feature code. So now my staff members need to remember to dial *550, enter area code and phone number that they're reaching out to on their VoIP phone. When they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. So again, it looks local to that, whoever I'm calling. But these are easier ways to change your caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Right, monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of all your staff members. Right, so if they're on a call, their box will be blue. It'll show you the phone number of the person who's calling in. Right, I can do by available or who's busy. I can also search by device. Over here, you've got active inbound calls, right? They each have a box on this side. If a call is parked using the feature codes, right, the parking spot number will also be displayed. Recording Manager, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. Uses your dash login, and that's where you would view your call recordings, download them, play them back, delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. The primary example we use is Zapier, right? So you'd link your Dash account to Zapier. You can go to our YouTube channel. There's an introduction to Zapier webinar that's up there so you can see what we've done. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done in terms of linking Dash to other software. But you do need to have another account with someone, right, in order to link. This is programming, right? So like our support staff, generally speaking, this is beyond our scope. We'd actually have to send you up to our services team / our engineers if you're having problems with the webhook. But again, I would recommend looking at developer.virtualpbx.com. That will probably give more help, especially if you're any good at programming. You actually want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this feature, as they have the most information. And then the last thing is the user portal. User portal is on an included feature for all plans. Each user has their own user portal, right? So as an admin, you can't get to your staff member Bob's user portal. Now, you can obviously get to his voicemail box, right? Because you have the voicemail box, voicemail manager, right? But this is where your staff members go. They can view their voicemails, they can listen to them, they can download them, right? They can choose to delete them. Right? Call history. Your staff members can go back and view their call history, right? And they can change the date range and filter it out. The fax tab, this is only good for users that have their own fax box, but they can see their fax history. The contact list, this is view only, right? But this allows you to see other staff members' extension numbers, the group extension numbers, etc. Right? You have multiple pages that they can go through. Conference tab, once it loads, over here on the far right, this is where your staff members would adjust their PIN numbers, right? For their moderating aspect, as well as for their participant PIN numbers. These are the options to have people joined muted or deafened, and then the option to play entry exit tones. When you're in a conference over here on the right, or left, sorry, you can click on the little plus icon to invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference so other people can't just randomly join. Mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box here. So you can mute a specific person, right? Or even kick out a specific person if necessary. And then the settings and devices tab. So this is where your users can enable call forwarding themselves, right? They've just put a little check mark here, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, parentheses, just +1 area code and number, and they click on save, and then call forwarding is in effect. And that is everything. So sorry we ran a little bit long today and had a late start. I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and we will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.